all three of us back together for this round. Ethan had his after being gone for 3 weeks, he had back weeks of getting a colonoscopy. This is a judge-free zone. We're not going to judge him about that, but that's why he was out for the last 3 weeks. He was getting the first one, it's standard, but after when you keep going back, there may be some questions arising, but nonetheless here we're not going to judge, we're not going to get into it. But
the biggest question I have with Dylan is when Ethan said he enjoyed the prep more than the actual colonoscopy.
I'm just gonna say I don't know if that was his hand up there or not, or if it was something else.
That's concerning on two levels. One, well, you need to tell me where this doctor is because I need to start visiting him or her.
It's Dylan's mom.
Ooh,
whoa!
Jolene.
Hey,
right.
Yeah, Jolene.
Leave her out of this. Which, that is, interesting that we are on this topic here. But I don't know if you guys have been paying attention much to the Fox Sports and the lawsuit going on right now with one of the hairdressers.
Oh, the sexual harassment.
Yeah, and so I've had a lot of people go and ask me, and I guess we'll just put this to bed right now. And the answer is yes. Both Grant and Ethan have slept with me to get on this show. This is how we became the Three Guys Talking Ball podcast.
That's not accurate. We slept in the same building, in the same apartment, but not together.
Ethan, that is not true. We did share a bed in Iowa City, or the town just outside Iowa City, and at the Comfort Inn in Bloomington.
And I will speak on this. I will speak on this topic. It was the worst experience of my life.
Yeah, the 3 hours.
Grant was videotaping
in Cedar Rapids.
Well, just the whole thing. I mean, it was
actually Grant was sleeping with Connor.
Yeah,
which was also an unpleasant experience.
But all right, well, nonetheless, now that we got that out of the way, here it is. We have a Super Bowl matchup. It is a Super Bowl 57 rematch here, Chiefs versus Eagles here, and we'll start going back. And after we recap it, we won't do our Super Bowl preview. We'll save that for next week, Nick. But after we do the recaps, we're going to grade every NFL head coaching hire to this point. As it stands right now on Tuesday, we only have one open vacancy right now, and that is the New Orleans Saints. They interviewed Kellen Moore and then the defensive coordinator for the Dolphins, I think I saw.
So do they know what they're doing?
Defensive coordinator for the Dolphins?
Yeah.
What? He was a former player.
Interview him instead of Flores.
First-time defensive play caller, and his defense was ass this year.
Yeah, I don't get that.
You know what? It's the Saints. Who cares?
You know what? I have a question.
Was that their Rooney interview?
Thank you. I was going to say, is that their Rooney Rule interview?
I feel like I thought. I don't. Maybe it was. I don't. I feel like they've interviewed some other. I feel like they interviewed Flores though too.
No, he never interviewed with them.
Oh,
you know what? They'd be stupid not to interview Aaron Glenn because he came from there.
I think he chose to sign with the Jets before his interview down there.
Oh, so maybe he knew it would be a Rooney Rule interview.
Could be.
It could be. But like we said, it's the Saints. Who cares?
Yeah, they don't matter.
Yeah, they don't. They in their history of existence, they have one good stretch, and it was the Drew Brees, Sean Payton stretch, and after that, they've kind of just been the Saints of what we knew from the first 10 to 11 years of our existence. Yes,
the
Aints, correct. But we'll start here with the AFC Championship game, the most recent one. We'll kind of go backwards, and that was the most exciting one of the weekend here. A back and forth game, a game that we thought it was going to go the way it went. Myself, I had Harrison Butker kicking a game-winning field goal, and there's been a lot of talk about officiating, maybe deservedly so. Did Josh Allen get a first down? Probably. But there were in all the aspects of the game, I think Patrick Mahomes played better than Josh Allen. Josh Allen had a couple of balls that should have been intercepted, especially when you look at that first drive. Andy Reid outcoached Sean McDermott, and in the biggest moments, the Chiefs made the plays. Steve Spagnuolo dialed up the perfect corner blitz at the perfect time, saved his best call for the most important play of the game. And the other part about it was I think that really played a factor into it, and I think that it needs to be a wider discussion, and we need to stop letting math nerds run run organizations. I think Mark Schlereth said it best, that math nerds were what football guys used to shove in lockers, and now we're letting them run football, and it's potentially ruining the game, because Buffalo's decision to chase points when they didn't need to is really, I think, what cost them. Because if they take the extra points on both situations, it's a 31-31 game, because the Chiefs aren't going to be going for 2 when it's 31 or 30-31. They're going to play for overtime, and at worst they're going to punt that ball instead of having to go for it because they were trailing. And then off the offensive side of the ball, perfect play calls by Andy Reid, aggressive play call, conservatively aggressive play calls by Andy Reid, I thought, to the safe completions where they might not get the first down, but it was a high percentage catch, to where if they do get tackled, oh well, the clock's got to keep running or they got to burn their timeouts. So I think those were the biggest factors in this game.
I still just think it's a mental thing for these quarterbacks playing Mahomes. Like, it's at this point, there's no other excuse. Like, Allen had, I think it was Shakir, wide open on the left side on that. Was it 4th and 5 or whatever the heck it was? Like, there was a linebacker maybe 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, but he wasn't going to make the tackle in time. But then he just runs the complete opposite way. Like, you throw into the blitz, and he just didn't do it. Like, there was multiple times like that where a play he normally makes, he didn't, and that's really what decided it.
And you could argue that's kind of been one of Josh's downfalls throughout his careers. He can sometimes spaz in these big moments where, he says before every game, even regular season games, he's throwing up in the trash can. Well, this is the biggest game of your life in your football career at this point. And you have that you're 0-3 against this one team in the playoffs. Where it sits in the back of your head. Ethan, you're right. It is a mental aspect of it. But I think another thing I think the Chiefs did well in this game is, compared to the regular season matchup, is they did a very nice job of rushing Allen and keeping him in the pocket. You didn't let Josh's legs take this game over. I think I saw he had 39 yards rushing. I didn't even look. If not that, they did a nice job of keeping him in the pocket, and they didn't let Allen's legs take this game over. James Cook, he had a hell of a game with those 2 touchdowns. And
then they didn't use him on that final drive. He didn't have touched the ball one time.
So, and Ethan's point, it's a mental aspect with these coaching staffs when you play the Chiefs now too, because one team, they've been there, they've done that, they've seen every situation. And they're going to be calm, and Buffalo's going to panic and kind of spaz a little bit, and they're not going to know what to do. But also, Dylan, like what I told you last week, the Chiefs decided to go to the running game, and that was huge in this game, because then they got the RPOs going. You're able to get Worthy. And then when they were dominating at the line of scrimmage, both offensive lines played really well. Then Mahomes is able to pull the ball and use his legs. Mahomes' legs were better in this game than Allen's legs, and that was the difference too. Because when you're the backside defensive end, you're not going to set the edge thinking Mahomes is going to pull it. So Mahomes, being just a crafty vet that he is, I'm going to take this, thank you, and I'm going to get 8 yards to the ground, and I'm going to have 2 rushing touchdowns in this game.
And that's the other thing too in these big games. was with Mahomes that nobody ever really seems to talk about, but how big of a factor his legs are in these big games. Because, I mean, you look at his first the AFC Championship game, where they beat the Titans. He had that big run right before half. And then, in the Super Bowl, and then against the Bengals in the AFC Championship game on a bad ankle, where he had a big first down run and where he ran out of bounds and was able to get them in field goal range to kick that game-winning PAT in the Super Bowl last year, in the Super Bowl the year before. I mean, you can go back and watch the highlights, and you will see 2 or 3 big runs by Mahomes in the most critical moments, especially on third down.
And then, also, like Ethan, to your point, like you said, Allen not seeing the blitz. How do these teams not know when it's fourth and got to have it, that you need to watch out where 22 and red is on the field? Trent McDuffie is coming. He's gonna time it up perfectly. You need to realize that, and you need to get a play call going. Or, as the week goes on, when you're doing your blitz package, when you're doing your third down, your fourth down day, you need to realize that 22 is coming. And also, Justin Reed's going to come up the middle too. So, to your point, for some reason, these teams do not know how to prepare. And Spagnuolo's going to, if they pull this off, he might go down as the best defensive coordinator in NFL history. Especially if he can slow down this Eagles offense with what he did with the Giants too, and the Niners. In this past Super Bowl, and then Super Bowl 54, only hold the Niners to 20 points. Spags is going to go down as the best defensive coordinator in NFL history, or the best big-time moment. Like, you need a stop on your defense. Guess what? Steve Spagnuolo is going to get that stop.
And Grant, we have some comments on you.
All on Josh Allen too, because Kincaid has to catch that ball, right in his hands.
That brings up the other part too. Is in these big games, the Chiefs receivers go out and make plays for Mahomes, where Allen's, he had a great drive last year in the divisional round that put him in a spot, and Diggs dropped it, and then they have a chance to take the lead on the field goal, and they shank the field goal wide right. You don't see that with the Chiefs. There's something about that when it's in these critical moments that they just believe that they're going to find a way to pull it out. I mean, it's no different than with NDSU all these years, the Patriots back then. That somehow, some way, there's that belief within the team that they're gonna they're gonna make something happen, and they're gonna pull out a win.
Well, and even to your point, Dylan, like with the Chiefs, the last 2 Super Bowls, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, he has the problem with the drops in Green Bay. He had a problem getting started early in his run in Kansas City. 2 huge catches against the Jaguars and the Bengals. And then we know about his struggles last year. He could have caught that long pass in the regular season against the Eagles. Drops that. Had another bad drop against a fumble against the Broncos. But in the playoffs last year, when they needed him most, he has these circus catches against Buffalo, against Baltimore to end the game in the AFC Championship game, and in the Super Bowl. For whatever reason, this team, when they need a play, their players step up and they make that play.
Yeah. And Grant, we got some comments on YouTube from Derpy Entertainment. Not sure who that is, but he says, I'm going to be a real Grant. Grant needs to burn that shirt and ask Daddy Goodell to forgive him for rooting for such a team. He also says, no, and I'm guessing this is in reference to the beginning of our show, is no, he was sleeping with Patrick Mahomes. So instead of Connor, you were sleeping with Patrick Mahomes, Grant. Interesting. And then he says, let's be real. Grant is going to cry happily when Travis proposes to Taylor live on TV after they win the Super Bowl.
I hope it happens. I hope Travis does propose.
I hope it happens.
I hope it happens. I don't know what to tell you.
The internet would literally blow up.
Because that means the Chiefs have won their 4th Super Bowl in the last 6 years and 3 in a row. And they're the first team to do it. And I can wear this sweatshirt proudly, saying that they rewrote history. So I hope it happens. Let's go. No, let's get a proposal.
Grant, do you have anything to say to the haters out there that say the Chiefs only win because it's rigged from the officiating?
I don't know. Don't let him score 32 points in a conference title game.
I'm not saying it's the only reason, but there's been some questionable calls to say.
Tell Dalton Kincaid to catch a pass. Tell Lamar Jackson. Tell Baltimore to not run the ball 8 times last year. Tell Joe Burrow's offensive line to not give up 5 sacks in an AFC title game. Joseph Asai needs to be smarter than that. Realize when the quarterback is running to the sidelines, they're going to throw that flag. It all comes down to teams making more mistakes. I don't know what to tell you. Too bad, I guess. I don't know.
Tell it to your therapist.
Yeah. Talk to your therapist every week on Thursday that you feel bad that an NFL game that really has no meaning on your life is affecting you this way. I don't know.
All right. Well, that's
Too
about
bad.
as much gloating or pettiness that you're going to get from Grant. I tried to serve it up to him on a silver platter, and he's a much better man than Ethan or I would have been in said situation. So I guess he's maybe saving it for after the Super Bowl.
In the words of Drew Tranquil, the haters can kick rocks.
Yeah, I don't know. The play-by-play, the radio guy for Kansas City had a tremendous call to end that game after they got that first down from P. Ryan. If you haven't heard it, go listen to it. But,
and also that's another thing that just shows the greatness of Andy Reid. Third and gotta have it. You're going to bring in your third running back, who's known as a pass blocker. Go out and have the perfect play called where he can get open, he can catch a pass, and he gets a first down. That's just a great coach realizing that Buffalo sees he's in. Guess what? He's a good pass blocker. We don't have to worry about him. We can play this man coverage, and he sneaks out the backfield and gets open. That's what a Hall of Fame coach does.
Did anyone ever confirm if James Cook was hurt that last possession or why he wasn't in?
Not that I've heard.
He didn't touch the field.
I have not. Yeah, that was, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, but yeah, it made no sense that he didn't have a touch or touch the ball or
maybe on that touchdown when that fourth down play when he got hit but extended it. Did he get hit in the ribs? And were his ribs bothering him? I'm not sure, but I would think in an AFC title game with your season on the line, the only reason you're not out there is because you think you physically can't play, right?
Well, and it doesn't seem like James Cook is hurt because because he's replacing Derrick Henry at the Pro Bowl, which obviously the Pro Bowl isn't what it used to be, but I'm assuming that he's not injured or
I don't know
what it was, but nonetheless, Chiefs go back to their third straight Super Bowl, and they're going to be playing the Philadelphia Eagles in a game that, Grant, we talked about it earlier, or last week's episode, said, Saquon's a tremendous player. He's going to get a 20 or 30-yard run. They can't let it become a 70-yard run. And what do they do on the first play after they go 18 plays and then decide to kick a field goal on fourth down?
Saquon goes for 70
yards, yeah.
70 yards.
60, yeah. Just the tackling on that play was terrible. Like, they actually had the guys there at least to make it an 8 to 12-yard gain, but I don't even know what the hell the corner was doing. He just kind of, put his shoulder into him and, rolled off him. It was one of the more pathetic attempts I've ever seen.
Did you guys almost get the vibe watching this game? Washington just felt good to be in the situation.
Probably a little bit.
They almost kind of felt like, you know what, our back's against the wall. We really shouldn't have been here. We should have won probably on paper 6 games this year. And this is kind of a buzzsaw we're playing because they didn't feel like they had the same juice as they did the last. I've watched 4 of their last 5 games, including the regular season game against the Falcons. I don't know. But again, also the Eagles are damn good, and they're going to make a team they're going to make a team look like that team is not trying because that's how good they are.
I think a lot was Daron Payne up too. Like, they ran all over them, and he
That-
is their best.
Yeah.
Not even just best defensive player, easily their best run defender.
And
So-
also,
And they were
It makes
already a
sense they had
suspect
8
defense
rushing
too.
touchdowns.
and Jonathan Allen had
Or
coming back
7,
from
whatever it was.
Jonathan Allen's coming back from a torn pec, so he's only 50%
Yeah,
of
like,
himself.
you can't expect a lot. How that thing's even healed is beyond me. This dude's, like, made of titanium.
I don't think it's healed. It's just he probably had some patchwork surgery.
A lot of painkillers.
Yeah, a lot of painkillers, or he went down to Tijuana and got some stem cells.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I think having all the amount of turnovers that they had, I think that deflated them in a sense. And it went back to what we talked about last game. It's similar with playing the Eagles is very similar against the Chiefs. It's the Eagles don't do anything to beat themselves.
No.
They don't have Jalen Hurts might get sacked for a 15-yard loss, but he doesn't fumble it and give the opponent a short field where it's easy to score. You know, he'll hold on to the football, and you watch it when they're running through traffic, or when they're on defense and they're surrounded by people. They talked about it on the broadcast about Sirianni emphasizes a lot is when they're in a pile or if somebody's getting up, you go and punch that ball out. And they are tremendous at forcing those turnovers. And it feels like, you know, people can say that Jalen Hurts is the weak link of the offense. And right now, I mean, their offensive line is pretty beat up. I think I heard something today. I can't remember what I heard it on, but said that threw something out there that they're so beat up. Jason Kelce, they might get Jason Kelce to come out of retirement to play.
So,
I don't even think that's legal, 1. And 2, I'm pretty sure both center that was out and Dickerson are going to play.
Because I know Jurgen.
I think as long as he hadn't filed the paperwork, I think he'd be okay. But
I feel
I'm
like
not
you have
sure.
to play in the regular season to play in the playoffs. That'd be kind of
no, because I know Kyle Shanahan said that if they would have beaten the Eagles 2 years ago, he would have signed Phillip Rivers signed Phillip Rivers to play. So there must be some way around it that they're able to.
Because
maybe if he retired with like years on his contract or something.
What injury did Jurgens have again? Or
back
what
or
did he
foot?
play
I
through?
have no idea.
Because I saw
I have
Dickerson.
no clue.
He was walking around pretty ginger with that brace on towards the end of the game.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, he injured his back.
The center, like
Jurgens injured his back.
Yeah, he warmed up and everything, so I think he'll probably play. I think Tom Pelissero said that on K-Fan the other day.
I would find it hard to believe that these guys aren't going to play in the Super Bowl. Like I said, it's the biggest game of their
they're
lives.
going to play.
I mean, they're going to. It's a matter of, 1, will it slow them down, and 2, does it get to a point where they maybe have to take them out of this game? But they're going to do everything they can to play. If this was a regular season game, like Chiefs Eagles Week 10, probably not. But this is the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, I mean, hell,
Totally
Thomas
agree.
Davis played the Super Bowl with a broken arm. So if there's a will, and judging by this Eagles team, they're gonna play. That's just something I heard. I can't remember where I heard it, but I was like, well, that would be interesting. But on third down, it just feels like every time it gets to third down, no matter if it's 3rd and 1 and the tush push is coming, or it's 3rd and 8, 3rd and 11, it just feels like Jalen Hurts is going to find either Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown somewhere, or Dallas Goedert, and they're going to find a way to get it to either 4th and 1, or they're going to convert a first down.
And they're always wide open.
He does need to be better. He needs to be more consistent, especially when he gets stuck in the pocket.
And it'll be interesting to see because it's the ultimate. You don't stop Saquon, but if you can slow him, and if you can get him to 2nd and 6, and if they throw on 2nd down, it's 3rd and 6, can this passing offense create explosive plays? Because last year in the Super Bowl, McCaffrey, he had, I think, 100 and something yards, but it was on 30 carries.
No, he
If
was
Saquon-
he was under. He had less than 88 yards because I won money on it. I had the under of Christian McCaffrey rush yards.
That's right. So Spagnuolo in this defense is going to come up with some scheme to attempt to slow Saquon down. So I'll be curious to see if this Eagles passing game is explosive enough to get these big plays, because so far in the playoffs it hasn't been that way.
Yeah,
I mean, if they really want to get him off balance, it's going to be getting Barkley going in the passing game. That's going to open up a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's with this Eagles defense is playing great, and they're very opportunistic in the playoffs, but they're giving up a lot of yards. Like Washington moved the ball, the Rams moved the ball. The Eagles just don't let you finish drives, and that's the one thing the Commanders couldn't do that they did against the Lions. Against the Lions, they scored touchdowns. Well, they kicked too many field goals last week, and then also, like you said, they just got in their way with all the turnovers and the fumbles. So that was kind of the difference. Because even early in the fourth quarter when they had it to 8, I was like, well, maybe. But then Eckler fumbles, and then, all hell breaks loose, and the link is going crazy. So at that point, it's like, well, pack your bags. You're going home.
Yeah.
Dylan, to answer your question on that Fiddler guy.
Yep.
They had an easy end one going in, and he jumped up before the ball went in and grabbed the rim, so they waved off the end one.
Oh, jeez.
Stupid.
Oh,
it was just an absolute idiotic. Oh, and then they missed the free throw on top of that. Woof.
No. Well, I guess that's good for the Gophers then. But Grant talked about packing bags, and we finally have some movement on the head coaching front here, and coaches packing their bags for happier times in a sense, as they get promotion. They've been promoted or gotten new jobs, or that have been out of work for a while. And we'll just go down my list of how I wrote them down, and then give a grade at the end of it here. The Patriots, I believe that was the first coaching hire of the offseason. They did go out and hire Mike Vrabel, one of their own, and one of the best coaching hire. He should still be the head coach for Tennessee, but they chose Will Levis over Mike Vrabel, and that's going to haunt Tennessee for years to come. I think, obviously, what Mike Vrabel brings is
A.J. Brown should still be in Tennessee too.
A.J. You know what's wild is A.J. Brown. A wild stat is A.J. Brown has been to the Super Bowl more times than Treylon Burks has touchdown catches since that trade.
It's not ideal.
And dude, I felt so bad for
the 16th overall pick or something.
Yeah, because
he was their first round pick.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well,
yeah. I think he was like 16th overall.
Eagles gave away that first round pick, and Vrabel was in the war room walking away like, "You've got to be kidding me!" Like that video will forever be iconic. Like, really? Was it Robinson? John Robinson? Is that the old GM's name? Was just like,
Yep.
Okay, well, we don't want to pay this guy. We're gonna pay Ryan Tannehill, and we're gonna draft Treylon Burks, but give up an absolute freakazoid in A.J. Brown. What?
It's like the opposite of when the Vikings traded back up to get Turner, and KOC's like, really? Complete 180.
Yeah, like Vrabel was just like, "You've got to be kidding me!" Like,
Gophers have it down to 12, Dylan.
Ooh, but back to the Patriots hiring Vrabel. The talk last year is you saw multiple times in press conferences, Gerard Mayo saying they weren't tough enough. That's not going to be a problem with Mike Vrabel as your head coach. They're bringing McDaniels back as the OC, who's got a big ask in, really the only place he's succeeded at is in New England. He's going to be tasked with developing Drake May. And, like we talked about with the defense not being tough last year, expect them to be tough. I think that's also going to go with the offensive line, just by how you can't practice in pads as many times as you used to in the NFL back when Vrabel was playing, but they're going to maximize that time where they are able to have those padded practices. They're going to be much more physical on both sides of the ball. And I think that defense is going to return to what they were under that last year of Belichick, because as bad as they were on the offensive end, defensively under Belichick, they were still a really good unit.
Weren't they like a top 5 unit?
They were. They were a top 5 unit, and I think if Drake May takes that next step, I think the Patriots right now, there's usually 6 to 8 teams that are in the playoffs that didn't make it from the year before. I think you have to look right now or pencil in the Patriots as a new playoff team from the year before.
I mean, look what May had. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson was the best player, skill position player around him. Like his offensive line, I think they had like 3 of their 5 starters on IR by week like 6 or 7. Like the dude's gonna be a stud. Like I told you that when I saw him at North Carolina in person. He just made throws that were different. He did the same thing in the NFL his first year when that's with absolutely nothing.
Oh yeah,
that was beneficial to him. So Vrabel A+ hire, easily the best hire of the cycle and probably the most logical and easy to see coming.
Well, oh yeah, I mean this, like I said, this is an A hire, and it's one of those where I think Kraft realized, okay, what we had with Belichick and how he ran things and the toughness and the accountability that he has on his players is the way to go. Now the Patriots just need to sit back and realize that, you know what, we need a legit general manager because this roster is awful. Like you said, when Ramondre Stevenson is your best offensive skill player, that's a problem. You're not going to win many games in the NFL with that. And you kind of have an
Wolf is gone, right?
I hope so, because he is.
I think so.
He is garbage. And
the Trent Baalke of the Northeast.
That's saying something. Holy smokes! But, the Patriots, they have so much money in cap space. And
is still he's the executive vice president of player personnel. It says according to his Wikipedia
is he really?
page.
Okay.
But you know what?
Yes.
I'll say this: I think Vrabel went in there in that interview and he said, "I'm taking this job and I'm getting final say." And him and the Crafts are so close, and they probably said absolutely. So yeah, Wolf might have that title, but he's not going to have as much say, anymore. And Dylan, I think to your point, Gerard Mayo being such an inexperienced head coach and not knowing how to press players the right way is what made this defense not as good as the year before. Because like Belichick said, it was the same players from 2023 when they had the number 1 rush defense in the NFL. But Mayo wasn't ready enough for this spot. Vrabel, he'll be right there. And they have $90 million in cap space.
Go get T. Higgins. Just pay the man.
You bring McDaniels back. You have a promising young quarterback. Players want to play for Mike Vrabel. A.J. Brown loves Mike Vrabel. Get a couple good players to want to go there. Develop in your offensive line in the draft when you had that top 5 pick. Good things might happen. Like the AFC East, besides Buffalo, is 3 mediocre teams. So there's no reason why the Patriots maybe, can't get good with a quick offseason and be right there in second place in this division next year.
How crazy would it be if Judon doesn't re-sign with the Falcons
and goes back?
And he goes back to New England.
I could see it.
I mean, Falcons traded for him and not extending him, stupid decision.
That doesn't make any sense. Like, you need to trade for him and have an extension in the works.
Yeah. It's no different than when the Jets traded for Reddick. Like, you have to get an extension done.
And that's what Belichick said.
It's the same thing. It's the Falcons. They're going to Falcon. That's as our good friend Michael Lombardi says, Super Bowl winning GM Terry Fontenot. No plan.
Hey, he is now the GM of North Carolina football.
He is.
What the hell is a GM? What the hell is a GM in college football?
It's a real position, Grant. It's a real position. It really is.
I'm not denying that. I just want to know what
you manage the NIL. Literally, it's the NIL. Like you're literally
it's
running
basically
a salary cap.
You go in, you talk. Okay, how much is Duke willing to pay you? They say at a number. Goes back, meets with Bill, says this is what it's going to take, and they decide, do we want to pay him? Is he worth that or not? And if not,
it's
good luck.
It's no different than an NFL GM outside of trading right now. Like it's crazy.
I wasn't denying that. I was just curious what the hell he did.
Yeah, like Jim Bowden's son, the MLB ESPN insider, he just became USC's GM.
No shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
But keep moving here. The Bears, they went out and got the darling of this coaching hire class, Ben Johnson, the former offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions. This is an interesting hire. I think he's going to be a good coach. It's obviously going to be how he develops Caleb Williams. He's not going to have the offensive line that he had for the Lions. I think the other question for me is I think offensively, and you see this a lot with a lot of these popular offensive coordinator coaching hires, is they get too involved into their play sheet where they don't learn how to manage the game. And I think the other thing that Chicago really needed, they needed a culture builder type, like a Dan Campbell, a guy that's going to stand up to the front office and get them to all be on the same page as far as what they need, and getting them to develop a toughness and, have a good balance. Is Ben Johnson going to be able to do that? We'll see. I think if he's able to do that, I think there's plenty of reasons for him to succeed. I think they need to get tougher and more physical. They've got a lot of nice weapons, but the offensive line is a huge question mark, and they're going to have to, that should be his top priority, because keeping Caleb Williams healthy is priority number one if this Bears want to succeed in the toughest division in the NFL right now.
I totally 100% agree with you. We question where he is, like that leader of men, like you mentioned. I don't know if you guys saw the video of when he actually got introduced as the Bears coach or not, but I was actually impressed how well he commanded the room. I thought that was a pretty big step. I know it's just an introduction, but at the same time, those matter. You look at the UCLA guy, at his press conference, what the hell was that? But he was he even said, "I want to lead all of you guys." It's not, it's not just I want to coach football. I want to know every single one of you guys and get to know you, and that's really how you build a culture and how you get these people to believe, and not only the team, but just all the employees, because you really all have one goal, even in athletics, doesn't matter what it is, and that's to win a Super Bowl. If everyone's not on it, from marketing to operational, it doesn't matter. And so he understood that right away, which I thought was impressive.
And I like what he talked about too, Ethan, of how he's going to try, design, and build a playbook based around Caleb Williams' skill set. I think that's a huge part too. It's not going to be because you have a completely different roster than what you had in Detroit, and that's a giant part is trying to build it and understanding your personnel.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think this is going to be a really great hire too, because Ben Johnson was in Detroit all those years when they were down to the dumps. People forget that Matt Patricia hired Ben Johnson. He was part of the staff before Dan Campbell got there. Ben Johnson saw the work that Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, and Chris Spielman and this organization has done in these last 4 years, building this thing from the ground up. He knows what it takes. He knows the kind of players you need to get on your roster, and he knows the kind of culture you need to have. And he learned that from Dan Campbell. It's going to be a slow burn, because I think Ryan Poles is arrogant, and I don't think he wants to listen to his head coach a whole lot. But I hope this new ownership in Chicago said, hey, if you don't listen to what he wants and get the kind of players that he's going to need, you're going to be on your ass, and you're not going to have a job, Ryan Poles, because there's a lot of moves you've made as GM of the Chicago Bears right now that is looking like booty cheeks. Letting David Montgomery go, overpaying for Swift, overpaying for your linebacker in Edmonds, not drafting Jalen Carter in 2023, not drafting Jared Verse this past year. huge mistakes. Not in trading for a 32-year-old Keenan Allen. Go out and get someone to protect Caleb Williams. You know what? I don't like talking about this because he's a player for the Chiefs and he's probably going to leave. If I'm the Chicago Bears, sign Trey Smith. Get that dog in the middle of your offensive line, because if you want someone to establish the culture in the running game you had in Detroit, a player like Trey Smith will be the one who will do that for you.
Yep.
Because he's that enforcer, and I think Ben Johnson will. I think it's going to be a good hire. It's not an A, but I'll give it a B+.
Yeah, that's what I had too for it, Grant. I had a B+, but let's keep going. Jaguars, they hired Tampa Bay offensive coordinator Liam Cohen, and it was a very smooth transition from Bucks OC to Jaguars head coach, you could say, for about 48 hours, as he signed an extension to become the highest paid offensive coordinator in the NFL, to then going to Jacksonville, or Jags fire Trent Baalke, because that was what scared off a lot of coaches, didn't want to deal with Trent Baalke. And Jaguars fire him, and Liam Cohen flies back to Jacksonville under the radar, cuts off all contact essentially with the Bucks. Bucks not happy, understandable, but also I understand Liam Cohen. This is his chance, his opportunity to become a head coach in the NFL. The timing is shitty, but nonetheless, it happens. And his biggest priority is resurrecting Trevor Lawrence. If he's able to do that, I think they're going to be very successful. And the other part is, it's going to be interesting to see. I don't think I've seen that they've hired a defensive coordinator yet, but getting a good defensive coordinator in there, because that was their defense couldn't stop a nosebleed last year.
I actually like this hire quite a bit. Their roster, offensively at least, is similar to Tampa Bay. You have your wide receiver one. You have Brian Thomas. And Grant, I was texting you about this the other day. They have two good running backs, just like they have in Tampa, and they have a great tight end in Evan Ingram. Like, there's a lot to work with offensively, but rebuilding that defense and getting someone in there that probably has experience, because I don't think he has any defensive experience at all, obviously. So getting someone that knows the ropes a little bit is going to be crucial to him. Obviously not like a Mike Zimmer, but someone that has a lot of years experience, not just some upping newcomer. Like, I don't think that's going to work very well.
Somebody with some head coaching experience as well, that can
possibly,
he can basically say, go take care of the defense, like what McVay did with Wade Phillips, in a sense.
Yep.
Well, and
I think it could be a good hire.
You like what Dan Quinn did last year with Cliff Kingsbury. I'm going to build the culture, but you're the head coach of the offense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the two teams in the Super Bowl. They each have that they're both offensive-minded head coaches. They have a defensive coordinator that they can trust, and they're just like, you know what, go. Do your thing.
Yeah. But
it's crazy. Like, Jacksonville's defense, their front seven has some talent. Their secondary is an absolute mess. I don't think Jacksonville's has ever been able to figure out a secondary besides getting the Jalen Ramsey pick right. So that's one thing they're going to have to focus on. And also, can he get Trevor Lawrence just mentally right? Because I think he's on the verge of being a broken player with how disastrous his rookie year was. Doug Peterson's first year, they started out 3-8. They win 6 in a row. They're 8-3 the next year. He sprains his ankle, and then all of a sudden they lose their last 6 games. Like, he's a very fragile quarterback right now, and he needs to come in and get this ship right. So it'll be interesting. I don't know. Grade wise, I'll give it like a B-, because I look at the work he did last year with Baker Mayfield, and he made Baker a top 3 quarterback in this league, top 5 quarterback in this league. And I think he could do that again with Trevor. It's just, can he establish a culture, and can he hire the right staff and a good defensive coach and a good defensive staff to turn this defense around.
Yeah, I gave it a B. Ethan, what grade do you give it?
I'll give it a B.
B. B's all around. Yep. B's all around. And the Jets.
Say, he did spend some time with the Rams, being Liam. So he's worked with McVay. So it'll be interesting too.
And the Jets, they hired Aaron Glenn, the Lions defensive coordinator, former Jet. Very well liked, well respected around the league. Not sure what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. It sounds like Aaron Glenn wants him back. We're going to see if Aaron wants to be back. Aaron Glenn is a leader of men. I think he had some tremendous. He was dealt a bad hand this year with all the injuries they had on defense, and they still, looking at that game against the Vikings last game of the year where it was just blitz everybody and really get Darnold off his game. Going to be curious to see what they do with the offensive staff, especially if Rodgers comes back. I'm not sure if they're going to want to keep it in place or what they're going to do. I think it wouldn't be bad if Rodgers stayed, in the sense that towards the end of the year, he did look a lot better and a little bit more comfortable coming off that Achilles injury. But the Jets, they haven't been to the playoffs since 2010, the 2010 season where they lost to the Steelers in the AFC Championship game. It's the longest playoff drought in the NFL. And I think there is a solid roster. I think getting a defensive-minded coach, you saw after they fired Saleh, the defense got progressively worse every game. And Aaron Glenn is known as a leader of men, and I think he's going to get everybody pulling in that same direction, getting everybody on board. And I think guys really rally around him and respond to him well. And I think he's going to try to establish a culture like what they had with the Detroit Lions.
And just like I said, with Chicago hiring Ben Johnson, and Ben, he was hired by Matt Patricia before he was in Detroit. He saw the lows, but then he saw the work. He was there with the work that Danny Campbell and the staff did. Well, again, Aaron Glenn was there too. And also Aaron Glenn, he spent a bunch of time in New Orleans as the head coach, as the defensive X coach. So he's worked under Sean Payton. And he saw how Sean built that thing from the ground up and how you should practice and how you should be a legit pro. So I do like this hire for the Jets because, like you said, Dylan, someone is finally going to have accountability in that locker room for that team. It's something I don't think the Jets have had for a long time. But the one thing that worries me about this job is Woody Johnson. Is he going to finally get out of the way? And if this reports are true that what came out from The Athletic, is he going to let the football people make football decisions? Because if he's not, he wants to keep getting his nose in the way, and this owner is wearing jewelry on the sideline and frankly looking like a fool, it's not going to matter what the Jets do. It's not going to matter what Aaron Glenn does. So that's the one tough part about this. But hopefully in his interview, Aaron said, you know what? I want football coaches making football decisions like what the owner did in Detroit. She got out of the way, and she said, you know what? I trust these men. So it might work out, but like you said, I think Glenn's going to get people excited and energized. And like you said, he is the leader of the room. So I'll give it a B+ higher.
All right. Ethan, you got anything to add?
No. Sorry.
No. All right. Well, then let's keep moving here. This was announced on Friday morning. The Raiders hired Pete Carroll, and this might be my favorite hire of this hiring cycle. You look at the AFC West, the conference got Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and it looks like Sean Payton and Bo Nix are headed towards a healthy and happy marriage for the next 15 years. It was time that the Raiders finally, and this might be some of the Brady influence, went out and they got an adult in the room, a guy that's going to, we've talked about it with pretty much every coach so far, is a culture builder, an establisher. Yes, Pete Carroll is 72 years old, but when you watch him in press conferences, you watch him on the sidelines coaching games, that guy has the energy of a 25-year-old. And the big thing is, he's an adult. You're not going to have him going out talking about how they got the Raider rules for Mahomes and all this talk, no action to back it up. You're going to see a more disciplined, a well-coached team this year. I'm curious. They got to go out and get a quarterback. I read something that Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll marriage might be on the table, depending, because I think they got to draft one, depending on who falls to him. I think, Russell Wilson could be a good bridge quarterback, because I think it sounds like that Russell and Pete have kind of patched things up, and Russell understands where Pete was coming from and why Pete did things the way he did. And the other part of it too is, if they don't go out and get a veteran quarterback, Pete Carroll does have a reputation of being very good with young quarterbacks, going all the way back to USC, coaching Matt Lyon, John David Booty, Mark Sanchez, Russell Wilson early on in his career. He was a big reason for Drew Bledsoe's success when he was the head coach of the Patriots. So there is a lot of reasons to really like this hire. And if they get the quarterback right, this roster isn't terrible in Vegas. So if they can get the quarterback right and not have just abysmal quarterback play, the Raiders, they're not going to compete for a playoffs this year, but going forward, they're going to be another force to reckon with in the AFC, potentially.
I don't mind the hire. I trust Brady. He knows a good coach. He's been around Belichick his whole life. But he's old. Like, I don't know how long he's going to be there, who their succession plan would be, who he's bringing in for coordinators and stuff. It's a decent hire. I'd probably give it like a B-, but they need a quarterback, honestly, more than anything.
Well, and I even just look at the last 3 to 4 years there in Seattle. It looks like this team, they progressively got worse and worse under Pete. Maybe it felt like his time there was long. Maybe Pete was he just couldn't engage to these young players anymore. But there was something off about his time there at the end in Seattle.
He didn't get along with the GM. That was a big thing.
Okay. Well, that'll do it. Or John Schneider.
John, whatever it is.
Yeah, the one I wonder, with the Raiders, besides Max Crosby, where is your difference maker on this defensive side of the ball? And if Pete wants to sit back and play this Seattle 6, the cover 6 and the cover 3 that he plays, they're really going to have to invest in the defensive line right there, because they paid a lot of money last year for Christian Wilkins, and where was he? And then also, I'm not sure can he hire a good offensive coordinator? When was the last time Seattle had a legit, you felt good offensive staff? Like Bevel, but that was just because they had a dominant offensive line in Marshawn, where they could run the ball and control that, everything else right there. I'm not sure this Raiders roster is built to do that now, because their offensive line was okay and they couldn't really run the ball last year without Jacobs. And I think he's going to be 74 in September. Like, how long can he do this? And does his age creep up and have a factor in this locker room where people are just like, okay, we're going to have to listen to him, but then guess what? 2 to 3 years from now, we're going to have a new voice in the room. It's a good hire on paper, but also I think it's a little risky. Like I said, like Ethan said, just because of the age factor, and everyone else in the AFC West is just absolutely loaded right now.
Yeah, they're definitely facing an uphill battle for sure. And especially if you don't have a quarterback in that division, it just got a lot steeper, and you're climbing Mount Everest.
Mm-hmm.
And let's get to the last the last coaching hire that we have to this point, and there's just the gleam, fellas, on this one. The Cowboys, they go out and hire Brian Schottenheimer. You know what? He's not going to be going down as the hottest or the biggest or most popular coaching hire of this cycle, or the flashy play designer. But you know what? Jerry Jones didn't get rich off being conservative. He got it off taking risks, and this is a big risk. And there's just this gleam going on, like his dad Marty always used to say, let's go get the gleam. And Brian Schottenheimer is going to be the next coach that gets Jerry his last ring and the Cowboys their 6th Super Bowl. Okay,
I'm not going to go that far, but I feel like the Cowboys are getting way too much heat for this. I really do. The dude's been in the league for a long time. He knows football. And honestly, Cooper Rush looked pretty damn good under him. Like, the offense really wasn't the reason they lost everything. They have a tough schedule, but the offense was honestly not bad. Like, injuries killed them all season. Like, if they have Dak, I mean, they're arguably a playoff team. Like, he was fine. Like, I think you could have done a hell of a lot worse, to be completely honest.
The part about it is that I'm curious is he's not known as this flashy play designer, not the most popular name, but when Marty shot, his dad was a hell of a football coach, probably deserves to be in Canton, won a bunch of regular season games, fell short in the playoffs. And maybe he's going to be one of those guys that's a better head coach than an offensive coordinator, where he can get everybody on board, everybody pulling in that same direction, get from the coaching staff to the players, and get them working towards that common goal to where they're putting themselves in a position. And I think one thing that really haunted his dad as a head coach was he was very conservative, by the book, play the percentages in the regular season, and it worked, and they won a lot of games. And then the playoffs, he would kind of go away from that, and he would turn into this get away from what he was, where they would be going for it a lot. They would be doing fake punts. They would be trying a lot of risky things that they probably didn't practice a whole lot, and they didn't succeed. And that's why they ended up probably, in a sense, underachieving and falling short. And Grant, your dad's a Chiefs fan, so he probably knows a lot better about that than we would, because we didn't get to see Marty Schottenheimer a lot coaching, because he was done really before we were really following football. We were 10 or 11 years old when he got fired from the Chargers after they went 14-2 that year, lost to the Patriots. But I mean, Jake Glazer said it on the Fox broadcast that Dak Prescott, he has a good relationship with Dak Prescott. Sounds like he's going to be also calling the offensive plays. If they can shore up the offensive line and get some consistency at the running back position, I'd like to see him draft another running back. But the problem is the guy calling the shots. And Jerry can talk about how he was all confident in this, but if he truly believed and liked this hire, look at the timing of when this hire was announced. This was a Friday news dump where it was just kind of thrown out there. If he really would have liked this, he would have been posting this right at the top of the news where it was breaking news and it was the only thing people were going to talk about. But right now it just feels like Jerry Jones is in his Al Davis, the end of the Al Davis stage for the Raiders, where he's just going rogue and doing his own thing.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing Brian can do is realize that he's been in the NFL a long time, and he's worked for a lot of coaches. He can see what worked for Rex Ryan when he was in New York. He can see what worked for Pete Carroll when he spent some time with him in Seattle. He can see what worked just this last couple of years with Mike McCarthy in Dallas. And he can kind of try to take bits and pieces there and then also do it the way he wants to do it. And you know what? He might be able to have some success with that. But also, like you said, Dylan, this it's Jerry and Stephen Jones. They're going to be the ones who always get in the way in Dallas, because is Brian Schottenheimer calling the shots, or is it the Joneses? Which is kind of why I just give this hire a C+, because it's not like many other teams were out there trying to interview, Brian, and he was a good candidate. It's just this just feels, again, as someone who Jerry wants to run, be in charge of, play like a puppet, and then just kind of get his name out there, because he made this aggressive hire.
Yeah, and we'll find out. My expectations aren't high, and it seems like Cowboys are kind of on that alternating trajectory of they'll make the playoffs one year, crap in their helmet the next, and we'll see. Maybe there's some juice there, but not overly high. Next week we'll preview the Super Bowl, and maybe by then the Saints probably will have a head coach. We'll talk about that a little bit. But before we wrap up this week's show, Grant, what do you have for us for Curveball of the Week?
So I randomly was thinking about, actually it was last Sunday after the Eagles and Rams played, how next year NBC is going to have, I think, the Super Bowl, the Olympics, and something else all within a calendar month. And I got to thinking, if we could make like an Olympic event, like out of house chores you guys have to do, what is one like house chore you want to see that could be like a competitive Olympic event that might low key be kind of fun to watch?
Oh,
vacuuming.
Vacuum lines.
Yep.
Like mowing
the
lines
you can,
vacuum lines.
Yeah. 100%.
Another one I thought of, guys, that is different is I want to see how fast two people can fold a load of laundry. But here's the thing. We're doing this. It's like a family of 6, and we're folding socks. Did you lose any? How fast can you match them? Can you put them away? I want to see something like that, because I remember as a kid sometimes helping my parents fold laundry. Oh my God, the amount of shit that was on that bed was incredible. And just I want to see two competitors going back and forth to see how fast you could fold a load of socks together.
Another one that would be good, and there's actually, I went down the Instagram rabbit hole one night. I can't remember what night it was. It was like a month ago. And there is competitive window cleaning in Germany.
Okay, that's fun.
Wow.
It was fantastic. I don't know how to explain it, but God damn it, there was not a streak on that window, and they did it in maybe 10 seconds. They did like a big row of like 4 big windows. It was awesome.
Another one.
I paid money to watch. I'd rather watch that than the WNBA, for sure.
That's fair. That's fair. Another one I kind of want to see, which I think would be fun. It's like, how fast can someone paint a room? But you have to put the tape on the, on the barriers.
You got put the tape up.
You got to put the tape up. Is there streaks?
Unless they're really good at cutting, then it's possible. But it's risky.
Is there streaks along the wall on the paint and such like that? How fast and how efficient can you be at doing this?
Yeah. I don't care to ever paint another room in my entire life after painting my entire house last year.
Mm-hmm.
Can we give one shout out before we end tonight? Rick Pitino, fired for hiring hookers, which we all know every school does anyway, goes to St. John's, and he looks like a national championship title contender. Like, fantastic for him.
Ethan, you called out school.
What did I see? They were up like 30.
I told you.
They were like 30. Yeah. They were up 37-9 or something in the first half at one point.
Yes. Like, dude,
that makes Providence fans happy.
I said 2 years before he was hired, some Power 5 needs to hire him, and good Lord, they let him go to New York. You know what he's going to do with those kids? Good God.
And especially that money?
Well, it's already showing, too.
Oh,
they were a borderline bubble team last year. They're definitely going to be they should be because they're ranked in the top 25 right now, aren't they?
They're 15th right now. Yeah, they're 18-3. Like they're a legitimate threat.
And well, but we're gonna blink here, guys, and it's gonna be March already. We're gonna be talking our March Madness tournament or our bracket here before we know it. But we got to get through the Super Bowl.
It'll probably go better.
So we're gonna get.
Who won last year? Did Dylan win last year?
No, you did.
You did,
third year in a row.
Yeah, you've won every year.
You ended up. You had more Final Four teams or something. I think that's how.
Well, I had UConn winning.
Kentucky did it. Kentucky, and I was out like first day.
Yeah, I had Kentucky in the Final Four, and that.
You know what? I think I had Purdue and I had UConn, and UConn winning it all took it for me.
That's what it was. I think I had Purdue in the national title too.
Yeah.
I think you ended up having one more Final Four team than I had.
It wasn't NC State.
It wouldn't have been NC State. I think I had Carolina all the way.
Well, I would have had Carolina too. I would because I had them beating Alabama. Or did I have Alabama beating them? I can't.
That's right.
I had Illinois in the national championship. I know that.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. But all right. Well, then I think that wraps up this week's episode of the Three Guys Talking Ball podcast. We'll be back next week to preview the Super Bowl, among other things. Probably talk a little bit if the Saints do have a head coaching hire and whatever comes up here. So with that, make sure you're following us on all of our social medias, your Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter. 3GTV Podcast is where you can find us. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, hit the little bell so you make sure you don't miss a notification of when we post a video or when we're going live. I think as of now, we'll probably go live again on Tuesday. But thank you guys again for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.